Justice League is a film which has seemingly split the film fan community right down the middle, the fifth entry into Warner Bros. DC Extended Universe, and the series' second release this year, following on from the huge success of Wonder Woman this past May. Sadly, Justice League has not managed to win over critics and audiences in the same way as Wonder Woman. The film currently holds a 41% score on Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 5.3 out of 10, and while not only opening to the lowest domestic total in the DCEU, an underwhelming 93 million, a 45% drop from last year's Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, and the lowest opening weekend for a film based on a DC comic property since 2011's Green Lantern. While I personally did enjoy Justice League and appreciated it for what it brought to the DC universe, both in spectacle and development of key characters, it's hard to dispute that the film hasn't quite hit the heights that it either could or quite frankly should. Now, this could partly be attributed to the film's messy production, which saw original director Zack Snyder leaving the film during the final stages of principal photography due to a family tragedy, and to be replaced by Joss Whedon, who oversaw extensive reshoots to lighten the film's tone and feel, reshoots which became increasingly noticeable throughout the film, and not just because of Henry Cavill's uncanny valley mustache removal. And as a result of this, the film at times feels like the end product of two distinctly unique filmmakers, both fighting for their vision to be heard over the other. And while I enjoy and appreciate the previous works of both Snyder and Whedon, it's clear that this is hardly the recipe for a successful film. However, I think there was a lot more to examine here than just the film's troubled production, as to why it failed to match the high expectations it had. At the risk of using hyperbole, bad films can make lots of money. And while I don't think Justice League is anywhere near the mess of a Transformers Age of Extinction or a Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, it's clear there was a lot more to Justice League's supposed failure than it appears. Firstly, the impact of the mixed receptions to 2016's Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad cannot be understated, BVS in particular. Despite a colossal opening weekend, the film failed to hit $1 billion worldwide, and only managed to double its opening weekend toll internationally. This, coupled with the critical panning of the movie and a measly 27% score on Rotten Tomatoes, may have killed much of the excitement towards the future of the DC universe. Despite this year's Wonder Woman represented a huge achievement for DC's films, becoming the highest grossing superhero origin film and a huge hit with critics, demonstrated by its monstrous 92% score on Rotten Tomatoes. But even with this success, it appeared that many people still seemed apprehensive with the film immediately following on from BVS, and by the same director, whereas Wonder Woman enjoyed the luxury of very much being its own self-contained movie due to its setting. Justice League very much had to pick up the pieces of where Batman v Superman left off. I've mentioned Rotten Tomatoes a number of times so far in this video, and there's a good reason for that. In the current age we live in, Rotten Tomatoes appears to be the hill that many movie fans choose to die on, an aggregator site which collects the reviews of hundreds of different film critics, rates their reviews as either positive or negative, and creates an overall percentage of this from their selected critics. However, Rotten Tomatoes as a system has its fair share of problems, at least in the way audiences attempt to use it. For instance, while Wonder Woman did receive a 92% positive score, meaning that 92% of the selected critics gave the film a positive review, the film's average rating on the site is only a 7.5 out of 10. Compare this to Batman v Superman, which, despite its rotten 27% score, actually has an average rating of 4.9. Suddenly, the margins become a lot closer than they first appear, and I think that this frequent misunderstanding of how the site exactly works can be damaging for film fans and how they themselves perceive a movie's critical success or failure. Justice League currently holds an average rating of 5.3 out of 10, with a 41% score on the tomato meter, but it could be argued that Rotten Tomatoes themselves hindered the film's success from a financial standpoint. Usually, once a film's review embargo is released, Rotten Tomatoes will begin to collate the reviews of its selected critics and begin to present its tomato meter score. In the case of Justice League, however, the site deliberately chose to withhold the official score until a day after the film's worldwide release, to coincide with the new Facebook Live series, See It, Skip It. With the influence that Rotten Tomatoes has on movie audiences as a trusted source of information as to whether a film is worth going to see, Pulling such a publicity stunt on one of the year's most anticipated films could very well have affected the opening weekend box office for Justice League. Regardless of these factors, however, the real problem with Justice League isn't so much about the film's messy production, the poor handling by Rotten Tomatoes, or the wavering support from previous lackluster films. The real problem, in my opinion, is a lack of clear identity within the actual film. As I stated earlier, I enjoyed Justice League, and while admiring the bodies of work created by both Snyder and Whedon, it appears that maybe Justice League just had too much up against it for the film to truly succeed. With the film starting principal photography so soon after BVS's release, any real attempts to course correct became almost impossible, bar minor script rewrites and an emphasis on light-hearted jokes. And this, coupled with the extensive reshoots the Justice League undertook, created an almost tug-of-war nature of the film's struggling identity. Despite being credited as sole director, Justice League does not feel like a Zack Snyder film, for better or for worse. And while there's definitely plenty of Joss Whedon's hallmark styles, it doesn't exactly feel like a Whedon film either. While I do believe that Justice League leaves the DC Extended Universe in a much stronger position than it was prior to the film's release, that only really works when Justice League itself is good enough to stand as not only part of a larger universe, but as its own film first. And honestly, maybe Justice League just had too much riding on its success and failed to manage the near crippling expectations of which it had to meet. The secret to any successful series of films is making films which resonate well with audiences as movies first, and entries into a larger universe second. And in the case of Justice League, it seems that it couldn't quite save a cinematic universe alone. Hey everyone, thank you for watching today's video. Please make sure to leave a like on the video and leave a comment down below and discuss anything we talked about in the video itself. What do you make of Justice League as a film? Who do you think is to blame for the film not doing as well as maybe it could have done originally? And also, what do you think of the future of the DCEU? Where does it go from here? Be really interested in hearing what you have to say about that. If you enjoyed the video, please do give a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I make bi-weekly videos analysing the best of comic books and movies and anything in between, really. There are some more videos on screen right now that you may enjoy. If you enjoyed this one, you can follow me on Twitter at OwenLikesComics, and I'll be back next time. So until then, take care and keep reading.